How does a marriage end with a birthday cake on one side of the table and divorce papers on the other? Why did everyone act like I was finished at 50, like my work and my name could be replaced in one afternoon? What I found in a locked compartment at Union Station was not comfort, but a map for a lawful reckoning. My name is Grant, and I turned 50 on a Tuesday that felt like a normal workday until it did not. I woke up before sunrise like I always do. My body still follows the old routine. A glass of water, a quick check of email, a look at the calendar. I had a meeting later. I also had a birthday dinner planned, which already felt strange to say out loud. Birthdays stopped feeling like milestones a long time ago. They became quiet markers, another year of keeping things running. In the kitchen, Renee was already dressed. Her hair was done. Her makeup was neat. She looked like she was going to an event. She told me she wanted the day to go smoothly. She said she had planned something nice. Her voice was calm, but it was the kind of calm that has a line under it, like a warning written in polite words. Lila came in a few minutes later. She did not run to me like she used to when she was small. She used to hug me so hard I would lose balance. She used to sit on the counter while I made breakfast and tell me every thought in her head. That morning she kept her phone in her hand. She said happy birthday without looking up for long. She sounded like she was reading from a script that she had practiced. I answered the same way, with careful tone, like we were co-workers trying to avoid conflict. Renee asked me not to bring up work at dinner. She said it was my day. She said she wanted it to be light. I nodded. I said I understood. I did not argue. Arguing had not helped for years. It only gave her more reason to say I was difficult. I drove to the office early. The building was quiet. The front desk lights were on, but the lobby felt empty. My company started small, in a rented room with old desks and secondhand chairs. Now we had a real floor, a warehouse contract, and clients who depended on our software to track shipments and schedules. On paper, it looked like success. In real life, it felt like I was renting space in my own name. People used to come to me first. Now they went around me. They asked Renee questions that I used to handle. They copied her on messages that should have come to me. They praised her in meetings for ideas I had built years ago. None of it was loud. That is how it happens. The world changes in quiet steps, and then one day you look up and do not recognize your place. I worked until late afternoon. I kept my focus on tasks because tasks do not judge you. Numbers do not judge you. A problem on a screen is honest. People are not. In the early evening, I went home to change. The house looked staged. The living room pillows were arranged. The counters were clean. It did not look like people lived there. It looked like a photo. Renee said the reservations were at a private room in a small restaurant, the kind with low lighting and soft music. She said it would be good for us. She said it would feel special. On the drive, she talked about the future in a way that did not include me. She mentioned new plans, new routines, new social circles. She spoke like she was briefing me on a schedule. Lila sat in the back seat, phone still in hand. She wore a dress that Renee picked. She looked older than her years, and not in a good way, more guarded, more tired. At the restaurant, the host greeted Renee first. He used her name like she was the important one. Renee smiled and guided us down the hall like she owned the place. In the private room, there were candles and a small cake. I noticed there was no big celebration, no friends, no family. That felt like relief at first. Then I realized it was also control. No witnesses we could trust. No one to interrupt the story. We sat. Renee asked the server for a specific bottle of water and a specific appetizer. She did not look at the menu. She acted like she had already decided everything, including what I would eat. I let her. I had learned that small resistance became big conflict, and big conflict became her reason to say I was unstable. Halfway through the meal, she reached into her bag and took out a flat envelope. She set it on the table near my plate, the way you set down a receipt. She told me it was time to be realistic. She said she could not carry me anymore. She said I was behind. She said I had lost my edge. She said money was tighter than I admitted. She said she was tired of living like we were always waiting for me to catch up. She said the envelope contained divorce papers. She said she had already thought through the next steps. She said she would keep the house and the cars. She said it was only fair because she said she had built the life with her effort and her connections. She said my business was not really mine anymore because she had helped shape it. She said I should sign and make it clean. I did not open the envelope. I did not touch it. I looked at her hands instead. Her nails were perfect. Her fingers were steady. She had practiced this. It was not a decision made in pain. It was a plan. Then I looked at Lila. She stared at the table. She did not protest. She did not ask questions. She did not look confused. She looked like she had already accepted what Renee had told her in private. Renee said Lila would stay with her, She said Lila needed stability and a stronger example. She said Lila deserved a better future than what I could provide. Lila finally looked up. She said she wanted peace. She said she was tired of tension. She said she did not want to choose sides, but her body was already on one side. Her chair was angled toward Renee. Her eyes went to Renee before they went to me. I felt a strange stillness. Not shock, not anger. More like a switch went off in my head. I understood that the dinner was not for me. It was for Renee to mark a transition. It was a ceremony. And the point was to make me small without needing to raise her voice. I told Renee I heard her. I told her I would not argue in public. I told her I would review what she gave me. I said it in a calm tone because calm was the only thing I still fully controlled. She looked satisfied, like she had proven something. We finished the meal. Renee acted normal again. She talked about the dessert like nothing happened. She took a photo of the cake and posted it. She did not include me in the picture. Lila smiled for the camera. I watched them do it. It felt like watching my life become a story I did not write. Outside, Renee walked ahead. Lila followed. I held the door. No one said thank you. In the parking lot, Renee said we would talk tomorrow. She said she expected me to be reasonable. She said I should think about what kind of father I wanted to be during the process. It sounded like advice, but it landed like pressure. I drove to my office instead of home. I did not want to sleep in the house that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. The office had a small back room with a couch we used during long client rollouts. I had slept there before, but it had never felt like exile. That night it did. I turned on one lamp. The building was silent. I sat at my desk and stared at the wall for a long time. My hands were still. My breathing was even. But inside, something was shifting. Not a storm. A kind of cold clarity. I understood that if I reacted emotionally, I would lose. Renee wanted that. She wanted me to look messy. She wanted me to beg. She wanted me to become proof of the story she was selling. I stood and walked to a storage closet at the end of the hallway. It was where we kept old boxes, spare cables, outdated banners from trade events. I had not opened that closet in months. I did not know why my feet took me there. Maybe I wanted something older than the present, something that reminded me I had a life before Renee's version of me. In the back, behind dusty binders, I found a leather briefcase. Dark brown, scuffed at the corners, heavy for its size. I recognized it right away, and that made my stomach tighten. It was Ms. Klein's briefcase. She had been my mentor when I was younger and still hungry in the clean way. She was a retired attorney with a sharp mind and a quiet way of seeing people before they saw themselves. In 2009, when my company was just an idea with a few contracts, she helped me structure things properly. She told me a business is not only code and clients, it is ownership, control, and survival. She said people do not always stay kind when money and image are involved. When she retired fully, she gave me that briefcase and told me not to open it until I truly needed it. I had laughed and told her I hoped I never would. She told me she hoped the same. Then she told me to be disciplined. I put the briefcase on my desk. The latch clicked when I opened it, a sharp sound in the quiet office. Inside, the papers were neat. The smell was old leather and clean folders. On top was a sealed envelope with my name handwritten in her careful script. Under it was a smaller note folded once. I opened the note first. It was short. It said that if my life fell apart, I should go to locker 243 at Union Station. It said I should not argue with people who only respect noise. It said I should use the systems that were built for truth. It ended with a line that felt like her voice in my head, telling me to breathe and stay steady. I did not open the sealed envelope. I held it in my hands for a moment and then set it down like it was fragile. My mind was already working, not on feelings, but on steps, a place, a number, a location, a clear instruction. I booked a flight that night. I did not tell Renee. I did not tell anyone at the office. I packed a small bag from the drawer where I kept emergency clothes. I locked my office and drove to the airport. The terminal lights were bright and cold. People moved around me with rolling bags and tired faces. I blended in. That was the first comfort I had felt all day. No one knew my story. No one cared about my age, my marriage, my business. I was just another man with a boarding pass. During the flight, I watched the dark sky out the window. I did not sleep. I replayed the dinner in my head, not to suffer, but to memorize details. The timing, the words Renee chose, Lila's posture, the photo. I told myself that memory is a kind of record, and records matter when people rewrite history. At the destination, I took a taxi to Union Station. The building was large and echoing. Footsteps and announcements. A mix of travelers, commuters, and workers. I found the locker hall after asking a staff member. The manager on duty was a man with tired eyes and a practiced, polite tone. I told him I needed access to locker 243. I showed him the note and my identification. I expected questions. He did not ask many. He only nodded like this was not the first time he had seen something unusual. He led me to the row and stopped at the number. He took a key ring from a drawer behind the counter, found the right key, and inserted it. The lock turned with a dry click. He pulled the door open a few inches, then stepped back and let me take over. I opened the locker. Inside was a sealed package, thicker than the note, wrapped carefully. Next to it was a small key taped to a plain card. There was also a short list of names written in Ms. Klein's handwriting, each one followed by a phone number. The sight of that handwriting made my chest feel tight. It felt like a hand reaching across time. My hands began to shake, not from fear of a person, but from the weight of intent. Ms. Klein had prepared for a day like this. She had seen the kinds of things I did not want to see. She had trusted that I would be calm enough to follow instructions when I was under pressure. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the station noise behind me, staring at the items inside the locker. I did not open the package. I did not call the numbers. Not yet. I only took everything out with care and held it close like it could change shape if I moved too fast. Then I closed the locker door and thanked the manager in a low voice. I walked away slowly, carrying the package and the key, feeling the old briefcase weight in my mind even though it was back at the office. I was alone in a crowded place, and for the first time since the dinner, I felt something other than humiliation. I felt direction. I spent that night in a small hotel near Union Station. It was not a nice place. It was clean enough, quiet enough, and close enough. I put the sealed package on the desk under the lamp. I placed the small key beside it. I kept the list of names in my wallet. I did not open anything. I did not make any calls. I told myself that the fastest move is not always the best move. I took a shower and stood under the water longer than I needed. I was not trying to wash off dirt. I was trying to wash off the feeling of being handled. At the restaurant, Renee had spoken like a person reading a plan. In the car, Lila had acted like my presence was something she had to manage. Those details sat in my chest like stones. I sat on the edge of the bed with a notebook. I started writing down a timeline from memory. The day of the dinner. The weeks before it. The strange comments. The way Renee started speaking about my work as if it was her work. The way she described our home as if I was a guest. I wrote it down in simple lines, almost like meeting notes. I did not write feelings. I wrote facts. I wrote what happened, who was there, what words were used, and what changed after. As I wrote, the story did not feel sudden anymore. It felt like the last step of a long pattern. Renee and I met when I was building the company from scratch. Back then, I was not impressive in the way people notice at parties. I wore cheap shirts. I drove an old car. I worked long hours and talked more about problems than about fun. Renee liked that I had direction. She said she liked that I was steady. She said she was tired of loud men who promised everything and delivered nothing. When she said it, I believed it was admiration. At first, it was. When the company started growing, my days became packed. I handled clients, contracts, and the software roadmap. Renee began helping with small tasks. She said she wanted to feel involved. She liked to send emails, organize lunches, and plan meetings. I was grateful. I thought it meant partnership. Then it shifted. She started correcting my wording in front of others. Not harshly, but with a smile. She would say that I meant something different, or that she could explain it better. If I looked surprised, she would tell me later that she was helping my image. She would say that people needed confidence, and my calm tone sounded uncertain to them. She framed it like advice. Over time, the advice became a rule. Renee began speaking first in meetings with vendors. She would introduce herself as the person who kept things moving. She would describe me as the technical mind, the quiet builder, the one who needed help with the social side. She would laugh lightly when she said it. Everyone would laugh with her because laughing with her was easy. I did not see it as a problem at first. I told myself it did not matter who spoke first, as long as the work got done. I told myself she deserved credit for helping. I told myself marriage was a team, but a team has respect. A team does not turn one person into a background prop. Lila was little during those years. I missed things. I missed some school mornings. I missed a few events. I did not miss everything. I still made time to read with her. I still tried to be present on weekends. I still took her to get pancakes when I could. But as the company grew, Renee started controlling the calendar. She decided what family time looked like. She planned it like a manager. If I had a deadline, she would tell Lila that I had chosen work over them. She said it in a soft voice, but the meaning was sharp. As Lila grew older, Renee's influence became more direct. She shaped what Lila valued. She praised appearances. She praised the right clothes, the right friends, the right photos. She treated calm effort like something boring. Lila started repeating that language. She would say she wanted a better life than stress and spreadsheets. She would say she wanted energy, not silence. Each time she said it, I wondered where it came from. I also wondered what I had failed to teach her. When I think back, I can name the point where Renee stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as a tool. It happened when she learned how much the company could be worth. Not the cash in the bank, but the value of the client relationships and the systems we built. That knowledge changed her posture. She became more protective of the story in public. She started talking about our company in a way that sounded less like pride and more like ownership. In the hotel room, I stared at the sealed package again. Ms. Klein's handwriting on the list of names felt like a reminder that some people see patterns before others do. She had warned me years ago, without drama. She used to say that trust is not a feeling. Trust is a structure. She said feelings change and structures hold. The next morning, I went to a coffee shop near the station. I sat where I could see the entrance. I ordered plain coffee and waited. One of the names on the list belonged to a person I had not spoken to in years. He was not a friend. He was more like a contact from the early days, someone who respected Ms. Klein and respected process. When he arrived, I greeted him calmly. I did not rush into my problem. I told him I had followed Ms. Klein's instructions. I told him my home life had collapsed and that my business was being pushed out from under me. I did not ask him to fix it. I asked him to point me toward the right steps, the right people, and the right way to avoid mistakes. He listened without interrupting. He asked simple questions like he was checking boxes. He asked who had access to what. He asked what changed recently. He asked whether I had reacted emotionally in writing. I told him I had not. He nodded once, like that mattered more than anything else. He advised me to focus on records and timelines and not on arguments. He told me that when people build a public story, they depend on you to play your assigned role. He told me I should refuse that role without raising my voice. After that meeting, I drove back toward my city. I needed to see the business with my own eyes. I needed to see what had been moved while I was busy being managed at home. I went straight to the warehouse floor, where our operations ran like a heartbeat. The warehouse is not a place for speeches. It is a place for pallets, scanners, and steady hands. It always felt more honest than the boardroom. Tara met me near the loading area. She had worked with me for a long time. She had seen me solve problems when others panicked. She did not flatter me. She did not soften things. That day she kept her voice low and told me that I was not imagining it. She said certain workflows had been rerouted. She said vendors were calling Renee first. She said new meetings were happening that did not include me, and people were told it was normal. I asked her how long it had been like that. She gave me a careful answer. She said it started slowly, then accelerated. She said some staff believed Renee was the new leader because she acted like it and because someone told them she was. Tara did not say the name at first. Then she finally mentioned Owen. I had seen Owen twice before. Once at a networking event, once at a dinner Renee insisted we attend. Owen was polished. He had the kind of smile that made people lean in. He spoke as if every sentence was part of a presentation. He asked me what I did, then answered my answer with a story about how the world was changing and how older leadership needed to step aside. He said it like a trend report. Renee laughed and said he was honest. Lila liked him right away because he spoke with energy and confidence. I did not dislike him in the normal way. I disliked what he represented. He represented the idea that calm work is not enough if you are not also entertaining. Tara told me that Owen had been showing up more. She said he was introduced as a strategic friend and then as someone who could guide the next stage. She said he spoke to staff as if he already had authority. She said Renee did not correct him. She encouraged it. I asked Tara if anyone had challenged that. Tara said most people did not want to get involved. They had families. They had bills. They followed the person who looked in control. That is how it usually goes. After the warehouse, I drove to the school parking lot around the time Lila would leave an activity. I stayed in my car. I did not walk up like a hero from a movie. I waited because Lila deserved space and because pushing too hard would only prove Renee's story. When Lila came out, she walked with two friends. Renee's car was already there. Lila headed toward it without looking around. I stepped out and said her name softly. She paused like she had been caught doing something wrong. She looked at me and then quickly looked toward Renee's car. I asked if we could talk for a minute. Lila said she was tired. She said she did not want stress. She said she wanted things to be normal. I asked what normal meant to her. She said normal meant no tension and no late-night calls and no serious talks. She said she wanted to focus on her life. I asked her if she remembered how things used to be between us. I told her I missed our mornings and our small jokes. She said she remembered, but she also said people change. She said Renee told her I was unpredictable and that I could ruin things if I felt cornered. She did not say it with anger. She said it as if it was a safety rule. I felt the loss in a quiet way. It was not a dramatic moment. It was the kind of moment where you realize someone you love has been given a version of you that you cannot recognize, and they have accepted it because it makes their life simpler. I told Lila I would not pressure her. I told her I was always her father. I told her I would handle things properly and keep things calm. I told her she did not need to be a messenger. She nodded, but her eyes stayed guarded. She got into Renee's car and closed the door. I sat back in my car and held the steering wheel for a long time. I did not chase the car. I did not call Renee. I did not send emotional messages. I only watched the taillights disappear and reminded myself that the only way to fight a story is with the kind of truth that survives scrutiny. That night, I returned to my office again. The couch in the back room felt less like a temporary spot and more like my new address. I pulled out the notebook and added more detail to my timeline. I noted the names, I noted the dates, I noted how Renee's public language changed, how Owen appeared more, how Lila's words started sounding rehearsed. I looked again at the sealed package and the small key. I still did not open anything. I told myself I would not let curiosity drag me into mistakes. Whatever Ms. Klein left was meant to be used the right way, not the fast way. I turned off the lamp and lay on the couch in the back room. The building settled around me. Pipes clicked, the air unit hummed. My mind stayed awake, but it was not spinning. It was aligning. I was starting to see the pattern clearly, and once you see a pattern, you can stop begging it to change and start preparing for what it is. My first instinct the next morning was to go home and take a clean set of clothes. It sounds small, but it mattered. I did not want Renee to be able to say I was drifting or unstable. I wanted to look like myself. Quiet, put together, reliable. I drove to the house around mid-morning. The street looked the same, but the feeling did not. I parked in my usual spot. I walked up the driveway like I still belonged there. I tried my key first, even though part of me already knew. The lock did not turn. I typed the entry code next. The keypad blinked and rejected it. For a moment, I stood there with my hand on the door, like a person waiting for someone to open it from the inside. No one did. The blinds moved slightly. I could not tell if it was the air or a person watching. A neighbor stepped outside across the street to check a mailbox that did not need checking. He looked at me and then looked away fast. He was not trying to be cruel. He was trying to avoid being pulled into a story. My phone buzzed. Renee sent a message that said she had changed the locks for safety and clarity. She wrote that I should not make things harder. She wrote that my clothes and personal items would be packed later, and I could arrange a pickup through a third person. She also wrote that Lila did not want tension at the house. I read it twice and did not answer. If I answered fast, it would become a thread Renee could show to others. If I answered with emotion, it would become proof for her version of me. I put the phone back in my pocket and walked to my car without looking around again. On the drive back to the office, I kept my breathing even. I told myself that this was the line being crossed. Not the dinner, not the envelope. Those were emotional lines. This was a practical line. A person had decided I did not have a place in my own home. That meant I should stop acting like this could be fixed by a talk at the kitchen table. At the office, I unlocked the door and walked straight to my desk. I sat down and opened my notebook again. I wrote a new line. Locks changed. Then I wrote the date and the time. I wrote Renee's message summary without adding judgment. I wrote down the neighbor's presence, not because it mattered legally, but because it mattered socially. Witnesses shape stories. I called Tara and asked her to meet me after lunch. She said she could. Her voice stayed steady, but I could hear concern in the quiet spaces between her words. Before she arrived, I opened my laptop and checked internal systems. Some permissions were still normal, others were not. A few folders were suddenly restricted, the ones tied to vendor negotiations and new marketing materials. It was not enough to stop the business, but it was enough to send a message. I did not slam my fist on the desk. I did not storm into the warehouse and demand answers. I opened a blank document and began a simple list of what I could access, what I could not access, and when it changed. I made it clean, like a checklist. I told myself that if I ever needed to explain this, I wanted it to look like a report, not like a complaint. When Tara arrived, we met in a small conference room with glass walls. People could see us, but they could not hear us. That was fine. I did not need secrecy. I needed order. Tara told me that Renee had been holding short meetings when I was not around. She called them alignment sessions. She told staff that I was taking personal time and that decisions would go through her for now. Tara said some people were confused, but many accepted it because Renee sounded certain. Tara also said Owen had been in the building again. I asked what Owen was doing. Tara said he walked through like he belonged. He asked questions about numbers and staff roles. He spoke in a confident, guiding tone. He acted like a partner. Tara said he never said it directly, but the message was that I was a chapter closing. I asked Tara if anyone pushed back. Tara said a few people tried, but they were careful. They had jobs to protect. Tara said she kept her head down and watched. She said she did not want to give Renee a reason to remove her. I told Tara I understood. I told her I was not going to ask her to fight. I told her I only needed her to keep her eyes open and keep things running as clean as possible. Tara nodded. She said she could do that. After Tara left, I sat alone again. I looked at the sealed package from Union Station. It was still unopened. The small key was still taped to its card. The list of names was still in my wallet. Ms. Klein's handwriting felt like a quiet hand on my shoulder, not comfort, direction. I decided to go to the bank. The branch was a few miles away. I knew the manager there because my business accounts had been there for years. The bank lobby smelled like paper and air conditioning. The chairs were arranged in neat lines. A screen on the wall played silent news. Mr. Patel greeted me with professional warmth. He asked if I wanted coffee or water. I said water was fine. We sat in a small meeting room with a table, 2 chairs, and a framed photo of a city skyline. Everything in that room was designed to keep emotion outside. I told Mr. Patel I wanted to understand recent changes in authorization and access on the accounts tied to the house and the business. I told him I was not there to accuse anyone. I told him I wanted facts and timelines. His expression shifted slightly, like a person moving from routine to careful. He said there had been recent requests and new instructions added. He said he could not interpret motives, but he could provide records through the proper process. He also said that when major life events happen, people sometimes move quickly, and banks have procedures for that. I asked what move quickly meant. He explained, in general terms, that people sometimes try to adjust access, add signers, or change how statements are delivered. He said it was not unusual, but it needed to be done correctly and transparently. I asked what I should do next. Mr. Patel said I should request a full activity summary and a list of recent access changes. He said I should also consider speaking with counsel, because when relationships break, misunderstandings become serious fast. I nodded. I told him I would do everything properly. I thanked him for being direct. I left the bank with no dramatic moment, only a calm awareness that the money side was being shaped while I slept on an office couch. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. I did not feel rage. I felt clarity again. Renee was not simply leaving, she was repositioning. She was building a story, and the story had a budget. Back at the office, I started organizing my digital life. I created folders with simple names: timeline, messages, meetings, accounts, permissions. I saved screenshots of access restrictions. I backed up email threads that showed how decisions used to flow through me. I did not open anything from Ms. Klein yet. I treated it like the final lever, not the first. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Renee. She wrote that she would be at the office the next day with Owen to discuss transitions. She wrote that it was better if I did not make a scene. She wrote that she wanted this to be civil. I did not answer. The next day, they arrived around noon. I saw Renee's car from the window. Owen stepped out first and held the door for her like they were walking into a public event. I watched their posture. It was confident and practiced. They came into the office lobby and spoke to the receptionist. Renee did not look around like a visitor. She walked like a person claiming space. Owen followed one step behind, then moved beside her as soon as he thought people were watching. Renee came to my office door and did not knock. She walked in and sat down in the chair across from my desk. Owen stood near the wall for a moment, then leaned slightly forward like he was inspecting a room he planned to own. Renee said she wanted a clean transition. She said she would handle the home and the schedule for Lila. She said she also needed control of the business accounts and vendor relationships to protect stability. She spoke calmly, but the words were firm. She acted like the decisions were already made. Owen spoke next. He said he respected my contributions. He said he also believed the business needed a new face and new energy. He said the market moved fast and that I was too cautious. He framed it like advice, not like a challenge. But his eyes did not match his tone. His eyes were measuring. I listened without interrupting. I nodded at intervals, not to agree, but to keep the room quiet. I told Renee I would not argue in the office. I told her I would review everything with professionals and respond through proper channels. I told Owen that I appreciated his concern and that I would handle my own business affairs properly. Renee's face tightened slightly. She wanted me to react. She wanted a raised voice she could label. She did not get it. She told me again that being calm did not change reality. She said that my calm was part of the problem. She said it made everyone else do the work. I told her I heard her. I told her I was not going to debate character. I told her I was going to focus on facts and process. Owen gave a small smile. He said, in a polite way, that process could be slow, and slow people get left behind. He said I should think about what was best for Lila and not drag things out. I told him that I always thought about what was best for Lila. I told him that I would not make impulsive decisions and that I would not be pushed by pressure. I kept my tone even. I watched their faces. Renee's confidence wavered for a second, not because she felt guilt, but because she could not get the reaction she wanted. After they left, the office felt colder, not because of air conditioning, because the line was fully crossed now. They were not asking for cooperation. They were training everyone to see me as an obstacle. That evening, I stayed late again. The building emptied out. The lights in the hallway dimmed to night mode. I was alone with the hum of machines and the quiet of my thoughts. I pulled the old briefcase closer and opened it again. I did not open the sealed envelope inside. I simply looked at it. I ran my fingers over the edge of the paper. Ms. Klein had told me, years ago, that some people do not respect emotions, but they respect institutions. She told me to build my life so that if someone tried to erase me, the system would not allow it. As I sat there, the office printer in the corner started making noise. It was not loud, but in a silent building, any sound feels sharp. Pages began to come out. I walked over and picked them up. They were internal meeting notices, calendar summaries, and automated system alerts that had been routed to print. Nothing dramatic by itself, but it showed how much had been scheduled and shifted without my consent. I set the pages in a neat stack and did not react. I only added new lines to my notebook and placed the stack into the folder marked Meetings. I did not confront anyone that night. I did not send angry emails. I treated it like data. Then I took out the list of names from Union Station and looked at it under the desk lamp. I chose one number and made the call. The person who answered did not sound surprised. He asked me to confirm my name and asked if I had received the package. I told him I had. He asked if I had opened it. I told him I had not. He made a short sound of approval and told me that was good. He asked me what had happened. I gave him a clean summary. Birthday dinner, lockout, business access shifting, a new person presenting himself as leadership. I kept it short and factual. He told me to schedule a formal meeting with counsel before I did anything else. He told me to keep my communication calm and minimal. He told me to keep collecting records and to avoid private confrontations. He said that when people try to take control, they often rely on chaos. He said my job was to remove chaos from the situation. I thanked him. I ended the call. I sat back in my chair and looked around the quiet office. I did not feel powerful. I felt steady. For the first time since my birthday dinner, I understood that I was not trapped in Renee's timeline. I could build my own. I could move through the systems she claimed to respect. I could let facts speak in rooms where tone did not matter. I turned off the lamp and lay on the couch in the back room again. The cushion was thin, but it held my weight. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the building settle. I did not know exactly how this would end yet, but I knew with a calm certainty that I would not be erased quietly. The next 2 days became a routine of small, careful actions. I did not chase arguments. I did not try to win anyone back with speeches. I focused on building something stronger than emotion. I focused on structure. I met Avery in a quiet office with plain walls and a heavy wooden desk. He was the kind of attorney who did not waste words. He listened more than he spoke. I told him I wanted everything handled through proper systems. I told him I did not want drama, and I did not want shortcuts. I told him my wife had locked me out of the house, my daughter was being pulled away, and my company access was shifting in ways that felt planned. Avery asked me for a timeline. I gave him the version from my notebook. Dates, locations, changes in access, changes in language, changes in behavior. He did not react emotionally. He reacted like a person reading a technical report. He asked where I had been sleeping. I told him I was using the couch in my office. He nodded once, then asked if I had responded to any messages in anger. I told him I had not. He nodded again, as if that single detail mattered. I mentioned the briefcase from 2009 and the locker at Union Station. I told him I had recovered a sealed package and a small key, and that I had not opened anything on my own. That was the first time Avery's posture changed. He stayed calm, but his attention sharpened. He told me not to open it alone. He told me to keep it secured and bring it to a controlled meeting when the time was right. He said that when people try to take control, they count on you to act before you think. He gave me a simple plan for the next phase. He said to preserve communications, gather records, and avoid private confrontations. He told me to keep my tone neutral in every message, even when it hurt. He told me to treat the situation like a process, not like a fight. He also told me to keep my daughter out of any adult pressure. He said that in cases like this, children often become the easiest tool for one parent to use. I left his office feeling lighter, not because my problems were solved, but because I had a map. Back at work, I started acting like my own compliance officer. I did not change anything publicly. I simply observed and recorded. I requested logs through normal internal channels, the kind of requests no one could call suspicious. I asked for standard system reports that tracked access changes and approval paths. I did not tell anyone why. I did not need to. I told myself the safest way to move was to move like it was routine. I met Tara again on the warehouse floor, near the loading area where the noise kept conversations private. She told me Renee had been more visible. She told me Renee was acting as if she was already the decision maker. She was speaking with staff in a warm tone, but the message was firm. Tara also said Owen had visited again, wearing a confident expression and greeting people like he was already part of leadership. I asked Tara what people were saying behind my back. She hesitated, then told me that some staff believed I had stepped away. Some believed I was overwhelmed. Some believed I had been careless with money. Tara said it sounded like a story that had been repeated enough times that it became common knowledge. Hearing that did not make me angry. It made me more disciplined. A story spreads faster than truth, but truth holds up longer. I reminded myself of that. I also started making quiet calls to a few longtime clients. I did not bring up my marriage. I did not bring up Renee. I asked them simple questions about service satisfaction and upcoming needs. I wanted to know if anyone had contacted them with a new message about transition or new leadership. I was careful with words. I did not want to look like I was recruiting loyalty. I only wanted to measure what was happening. A few clients sounded hesitant. They told me they had received friendly check-ins from Renee and Owen. They described it like a normal business update, but they also said the tone suggested I was no longer central. One client mentioned that Owen had spoken about fresh leadership and modern direction. The client did not sound convinced, but the message had been delivered. I thanked them for their honesty. I told them the service would remain stable. I told them I would be in touch if anything needed official clarification. I kept my voice level and ended each call quickly. That afternoon, Mr. Patel called me back from the bank. He told me he could provide summaries and a record of authorization changes through the proper process. He advised me again to handle it through counsel. He did not sound alarmed. He sounded careful. He was the kind of man who understood that paperwork is not just paperwork when relationships break. I added that call to my timeline. At home, I did not go near the house again. I did not want another scene on the porch. I did not want neighbors to become witnesses for a narrative that did not serve me. Instead, I focused on what I could control: my routines, my tone, my record keeping, and my next steps. Renee sent more messages. They were short and controlled. She wrote that she wanted things to be civil. She wrote that I should accept the reality and stop making things harder. She wrote that Lila was happier without tension. She wrote it like she was documenting me, not talking to me. I did not respond to most of them. When I did respond, I kept it simple. I acknowledged receipt. I asked for logistics to be handled through counsel. I did not argue about feelings. I did not accuse. I did not beg. Every message I sent was something I would be comfortable reading aloud in a professional room. One evening, I received notice of a family counseling session that Renee had scheduled. She told me it would help Lila. She told me it would show maturity. She also implied, without saying it directly, that refusing would make me look unstable. I agreed to attend, but I told Avery first. Avery advised me to stay calm, keep my words short, and avoid any private hallway conversations. The counseling office was in a small building with soft lighting and neutral art on the walls. The waiting room had a water dispenser and a small table with magazines. I arrived early and sat with my hands folded, like I was waiting for an interview. My phone was face down on my knee. I kept my breathing steady. Renee arrived a few minutes later. She looked prepared, like she always did. Lila came in behind her, quiet and withdrawn. Then Owen entered with them. Seeing him there in that setting made something inside me go still again. It was not surprise. It was recognition. The line had moved further. It was no longer just a marriage ending. It was a replacement being staged. The counselor greeted us and gestured toward the doors. There was a pause as if we were expected to walk in together like a united family. Renee positioned herself close to Lila. Owen stood on Renee's other side, as if he was part of the structure. I walked behind them and said nothing. In the session, Renee spoke first. She described the separation as necessary and overdue. She described me as distant and difficult to communicate with. She framed herself as the one maintaining calm. She said Lila needed stability and positivity. I listened and did not interrupt. When it was my turn, I spoke plainly. I said I wanted Lila to feel safe and supported. I said I would not put adult conflict on her shoulders. I said I was willing to follow a schedule and respect boundaries. I did not argue with Renee's description of me. I did not try to win the room. I focused on what I could commit to. Lila spoke in short sentences. She said she wanted peace. She said she wanted to focus on school and friends. She said she did not want tension. Her eyes moved to Renee often, like she was checking whether she was saying the correct thing. Owen spoke as well. He said he was there only to support Renee and Lila. He said he wanted what was best for Lila. He used calm words, but he spoke like a person trying to establish legitimacy. He did not act like an outsider. He acted like a guardian. The counselor asked if Owen could step out for part of the session. Renee resisted briefly, saying he was helpful. The counselor insisted politely. Owen left the room, still calm, still confident. When he was gone, the air changed slightly. Renee's tone tightened. She pressed harder on her points. She described my calm as a mask. She implied I was passive and unreliable. She said Lila had been disappointed too many times. I did not argue. I did not say she was lying. I said that I understood Lila's feelings mattered. I said I was committed to being consistent. I asked for a clear schedule so there would be no confusion. I told the counselor I wanted all coordination to be documented and respectful so Lila would not be caught in the middle. Renee did not like that. She wanted flexibility because flexibility gives control. I could see it in her expression when I kept returning to clear structure. After the session ended, Renee tried to speak to me in the hallway without the counselor. She said I was making everything cold. She said I was acting like a stranger. She said I was trying to turn it into a business negotiation. I told her I was trying to make it stable. I told her I would communicate through proper channels. I told her I would not argue in the hallway. I kept walking. In the parking lot, I watched Renee and Lila get into the car. Owen was waiting by the passenger door. He opened it for Renee again. Lila climbed into the back seat without looking at me. Renee drove off. Owen stayed close to her like a shadow. I sat in my car and did not move for a minute. I did not feel defeated. I felt more certain. That night at the office, I returned to my folders. I backed up more messages. I saved the counseling appointment notice. I added notes about who attended and how it was framed. I kept it clean, no emotional language, just facts. I also noticed something new in my inbox. A calendar invite marked as Final Approval Meeting. The invite list was long. Several board members, company counsel, Renee, a few senior staff. My name was not included as a host, only as an attendee, and even that looked like an afterthought. I stared at the screen and felt the pattern lock into place. They were not just trying to separate from me. They were trying to finalize a public version of events in a formal room, with witnesses, agendas, and authority. They were trying to make their story official. I closed the laptop and sat back. I looked at the sealed package again, still untouched. I thought about Ms. Klein's warning from years ago, the idea that truth needs structure to survive. I did not open anything yet. I did not rush. I only made one quiet decision inside my chest. If they wanted a formal room, I would meet them in a formal room. If they wanted systems, I would use systems. If they wanted a story, I would bring facts. The calendar invite for the final approval meeting sat in my inbox like a polite threat. It looked normal on the surface. A time, a room, a list of attendees, a neat subject line. But I could feel the intent behind it. They wanted a clean ending in a formal space. They wanted witnesses, notes, and a story that sounded official. I did not forward it to anyone in the office. I did not ask questions in the hallway. I did not confront Renee or Owen about it. I sent the invite to Avery and to myself in a private folder. Then I went back to work as if nothing had changed. That week, I kept my routine tight. I woke up early in the office back room. I folded the blanket. I washed my face in the small sink. I made plain coffee and ate something simple. I did not scroll through old photos. I did not replay the restaurant scene more than I needed. I treated my mind like a work tool. I kept it clean. I met Avery again the next morning. This time, I brought everything I had been collecting in quiet pieces. Not the contents of the sealed package, but the parts around it. My timeline notes, the calendar invites, the messages from Renee, the notes from the counseling session, the access changes Tara had spotted, the bank summaries Mr. Patel said he could provide through the proper process. Avery laid it out on his desk in a neat grid, like a person arranging parts for a machine. He asked short questions. He asked what my goal was. I told him my goal was simple. I wanted lawful protection of my business position, a clear process at home, and a way to stop being treated like a problem that could be moved aside. Avery said I had done something most people fail to do. He said I had kept my tone stable and my records clear. He said that mattered more than people think. He said formal rooms respect order, not emotion. He also said something that stayed with me. He said the other side was acting like the outcome was already decided. When people feel safe, they take bigger steps. When they take bigger steps, they leave clearer tracks. He told me not to interrupt that too early. I asked about the sealed package. Avery told me again not to open it alone. He told me to keep it secure and to treat it like a protected item, not like a secret toy. He said if it mattered, it would matter most when the right people were present. After that meeting, I went to the bank. Mr. Patel met me with the same careful tone. He offered water again. We sat in the same room with the framed skyline. He did not speak like a man taking sides. He spoke like a man who respects procedure. He confirmed he could provide certain summaries through the proper process. He also explained, in general terms, how banks respond when there is disagreement about authority on accounts. He said every step needed to be documented. He said calm communication helped. I thanked him. I did not ask him to interpret Renee's intentions. I did not ask him to guess motives. I only asked what the bank needed from me and how to ensure nothing was handled in a confusing way. He gave me a checklist. I followed it. Back at the office, I met Tara near the warehouse again. Tara looked tired. Not just from work, but from being surrounded by people acting like a play was already written. She told me the final approval meeting was being talked about quietly among senior staff. She said some people believed it was the moment Renee would become the official leader. She said Owen had been speaking with a few people as if he would be part of a new leadership circle. I asked Tara how people were treating her. She said some were cautious, like they were watching to see who would win. She said a few people were suddenly friendly in a forced way, like they wanted to be remembered later. Tara said she stayed focused on operations and did not comment. I told her she was doing the right thing. I told her not to argue with anyone. I told her to keep the warehouse steady and to keep notes for herself. Quietly, the way I was doing. Tara nodded. She said she had been doing that already, because something felt wrong and she did not want to be caught without a record. That night, I sat in my office and did something I had avoided for days. I reviewed my own habits, the ways I had made it easy for Renee to take the microphone. I thought about every time I stayed silent to keep the peace. I thought about every time I let her speak for me because I told myself it did not matter. It did matter. It mattered because people do not only respect ownership, they respect presence. When you step back too often, someone else steps forward. If they do it long enough, the room forgets you were ever leading. I did not punish myself for it. I simply accepted it. Then I returned to what I could do now. Over the next few days, Avery kept me on a narrow path. He advised me to reduce casual communication with Renee. He advised me to direct logistics through proper channels. He advised me to keep my notes short and factual. He advised me to be ready for the final approval meeting because the room would move fast and it would not wait for me to find my footing. I kept my phone on silent most of the time. I did not chase every message. Renee sent a few more short notes. They were framed like concern, but they carried pressure. She wrote that I should not embarrass myself in front of the board. She wrote that people were tired of my slow decisions. She wrote that Lila did not want drama and that I should think of her future. When I read those messages, I did not respond with my feelings. I responded only when necessary and only with logistics. I acknowledged receipt. I said I would communicate through counsel. I kept it clean. Lila did not reach out at all. That silence was its own kind of pain. The hardest part was not the business pressure. It was the feeling that my daughter was being trained to see me as a risk. One afternoon, I saw Lila from a distance at a school event. I did not approach. I watched her for a minute and then left. I told myself I would not force a moment that could be turned into another story about me being unstable. I wanted my presence in her life to be calm, not messy. At the office, people started acting different around me. Some avoided eye contact. Some smiled too brightly. Some spoke as if they were checking my mood before choosing their words. I did not blame them. People follow the person who seems most in control. Right then, Renee was projecting control with perfect posture and confident timing. I stayed steady anyway. The day before the final approval meeting, Avery asked me to come in early. He said we needed to prepare my approach to the room. Not a speech, not a confrontation, a simple sequence. We sat at his desk again. He asked me to practice a few short sentences that would keep me focused. He asked me to avoid long explanations. He told me that formal rooms punish rambling. He told me to let process do the heavy lifting. He also told me something else. He told me the meeting would likely be staged as a celebration. He said when people think they are winning, they turn events into performances. He said that could work in my favor because performances often get careless. I left his office and went back to mine. That night, I did not sleep much. I did not pace. I did not drink. I did not do anything dramatic. I simply sat with my folders and reviewed my timeline again and again until I could say it in my head without any emotion attached. I also checked my appearance for the next day. A clean shirt, a simple jacket, nothing flashy, nothing that looked like I was trying to impress. I wanted to look like the person I had always been, steady and professional. Oh, in the morning, I woke up early. The building was still dark. I made coffee and sat at my desk under the lamp. I looked at the sealed package one more time. I did not open it. I did not touch the seal. I only made sure it was secure and ready to be handled properly. I drove to headquarters with extra time. I did not want to rush. Rushing makes mistakes. Mistakes become stories. The parking garage under the building was cool and quiet. My footsteps echoed between concrete pillars. I walked slowly, carrying only what I needed. I did not bring boxes. I did not bring anything that would make it look like I was putting on a show. I wanted to be the opposite of a show. In the elevator, I watched the numbers rise. My reflection in the metal doors looked older than it used to, but not weak. Just seasoned. There is a difference. When the doors opened, I stepped onto the boardroom floor. The hallway carpet softened my steps. A few people were already there, talking in small clusters. I nodded politely and kept moving. I did not stop for small talk. I did not want to be drawn into side conversations. Near the boardroom entrance, I saw a sign-in sheet and a staff member with a clipboard. I signed my name in clear handwriting. The staff member looked at me for a second longer than normal, then looked away. People were watching. I expected that. I walked to a chair near the glass wall and sat down. Through the glass, I could see the room being set. Bottled water placed neatly, printed agendas on the table, a few people smiling and shaking hands as if they were arriving at a ceremony. I kept my hands resting on my knees. I kept my breathing slow. I told myself that I did not need to win a social moment. I only needed to stand in the right place at the right time and let the proper systems do what they were built to do. Then I waited for the meeting to begin. The boardroom doors were already open when I walked in. The table was set like a celebration. Water bottles were lined up. A tray of pastries sat near the window. Printed agendas were placed at every seat. Renee stood near the screen, smiling as people arrived. Owen moved through the room like he belonged there, greeting board members with confident handshakes. When everyone sat, the chair called the meeting to order. Renee started speaking right away. She described a transition plan that made me sound like a past chapter. She said the company needed fresh direction. She said I had become slow and difficult. She said she was protecting stability for staff and clients. I waited until she finished. I raised my hand slightly and asked to be recognized. My voice stayed level. I said I wanted the minutes to reflect that I was present and that my statements would be factual. I said I would keep it brief. Then I nodded to Avery. Avery placed the sealed package from Union Station on the table and explained where it came from. He said Ms. Klein had created a contingency structure in 2009 for exactly this type of control attempt. He broke the seal in front of everyone and removed the documents carefully, like he was handling something fragile and important. He walked the board through the main points. He showed that certain company powers could not be reassigned through informal pressure or sudden access changes. He showed that decision authority required specific approvals and that recent steps did not meet those requirements. He showed a timeline of access restrictions, account instructions, and meeting scheduling that matched my notes and system logs. Renee tried to interrupt. She said the documents were old and irrelevant. Avery responded calmly and said the structure was still active and still controlling. Company counsel reviewed the pages, asked for a short pause, then confirmed the key sections out loud in procedural language. The chair's tone changed. The room stopped feeling like a celebration and started feeling like risk management. The chair asked Renee to stop presenting until a formal review was completed. Owen tried to speak, but company counsel asked him to step out because he had no official role. Owen hesitated, then left without another word. The chair asked Renee for her access badge and said it would be held pending investigation. Renee stared at the table like she was seeing it for the first time. Her hand hovered over the badge clip, then froze. No one spoke. The meeting recorder light stayed on. Avery slid a clean copy of the board's next steps across the table, and the chair asked Renee again, more slowly, to place the badge down.